The Environmental Policy Group at Wageningen University studies environmental changes from a social science perspective. And one of the three key domains of our research is sustainable consumption and production. Now, when you say sustainable production, the first things that come to mind are industries, technology, markets. Green markets, however, are not made up by companies and industries only. They include consumers as well. Consumers, their opinions and their buying behaviors are important, because without increasing green demand, the greening of industry will stagnate. Nowadays, green production follows green demand and not the other way around. So consumers matter. But how exactly? How can their roles and responsibilities be described and analyzed from a social science point of view? That's the question where this video is about. We start with some theory and then go on illustrating that theory with the help of three research projects. So first, the theory. To show how environmental behaviors work, we developed this model. And it expresses the basic idea that human behaviors are social in the sense of shared behaviors. In the center of the model are social practices. Practices like shopping for food, showering, commuting from home to work. They are shared phenomena because, for example, your individual shopping behavior in the supermarket shows some structural similarities with the behavior of all shoppers in the supermarkets around the world. So when studying practices like shopping, it's not enough to study variables that refer only to individuals, to actors and their lifestyles, because they only tell part of the story what's happening in the supermarket. Our behaviors are also shaped by so-called systems of provision. And when studying the greening of consumption practices, you have to include the role of these systems of provisions like supermarkets, processing industries and farmers in your analysis. So in short, to provide a full explanation of changes in consumption practices, you need to include both the left wing and the right wing variables to explain what's happening in the practices. When you go shopping for food in the supermarket, both the shop floor, the retailer and the individual consumer and his or her preferences do matter and have to be included in the study, as we will show in our first example.
Demand for sustainable food is increasing, but is this trend similar all over the world? To answer this question, Kanang Kantamaturapai from Thailand did a study at ENP. In this PhD study she answered the question which channels in Bangkok are used for providing sustainable food to consumers, and she found two different channels. On the one hand, there are specialized shops where sustainable food is sold to consumers and where trust is built through personal interaction between providers and consumers. And on the other hand, there are supermarkets. Supermarkets promote sustainability through labeling and certification and create trust through these systems. Kanang found in her study that the supermarkets are offering the best opportunity for expanding the market for sustainable food in Bangkok. Supermarkets can take a leading role in expanding the market by more explicitly mentioning sustainability in their food and by offering more products that fit the habits of the Thai consumers.
We did an experiment with carbon labels on canteen food in this restaurant of the future, which is part of Wageningen University. And here in this restaurant we are able to monitor what consumers eat every day. We did an experiment in which we found out what people normally eat and how they pick their food. We then introduced carbon labels for all the regular lunch products like soup, drinks, sandwiches, salads and meat. And we supported the messages on these labels with a lot of different communications. So for example, posters, flyers, a video presentation, a so-called CO2 pillar for monitoring the climate scores of people's lunch, and also some menu suggestions on the tables where people have lunch. Menu suggestions that show low carbon lunches. After introducing the labels and all the supporting interventions, we monitored the changes in the behavior of the canteen visitors for more than 10 weeks. However, it turned out that our climate labels and all other communications managed to produce only very modest shifts in the behavior of the canteen visitors. To better understand these results, we brought a number of canteen visitors together in a focus group meeting. From this meeting, we learned that consumers tend to resist interventions in their lunch routines because they are used to having lunch in a particular manner. They defend their lunch as a precious routine and acted in their own private time, free from work, and in company of colleagues that you know and that you like. Everything that might disturb this routine is in principle met with suspicion. So what we were able to show with this experiment is that many consumption practices are strongly routinized behaviors, and for changing these kind of behaviors it's not enough to provide individual consumers just with more and better information and communication.
Our third example takes us away from food into the domain of water and energy services as a particular field of sustainable consumption. Water, sewer and energy services are provided by huge network-bound systems. Some 20 years ago, only state-owned companies were responsible. Consumers were considered as connections or simply the demand side. From our research, we can say this is slowly changing. There is a growing concern on consumers' appreciation of sustainable innovation in water and sewer systems. But the biggest changes we can see in energy services. Consumers become overloaded with choices between different grades of green electricity. More importantly, they become enrolled as co-producers of energy, for instance, as a very local energy producer through the solar panels on their roof. It is a combination of environmental legislation and liberalization that has led to a splintering of networks of energy and water into smaller, diversified systems. Our research is focused on what this means for the roles of consumers. This is, for instance, what we study in a new PhD project on smart grids and smart meters in Europe. Smart grids and smart meters are typically high-tech solutions provided by engineers. Yuri Naus is researching what all this technology implies for consumer roles towards the conventional and the new suppliers of electricity. His PhD project focuses on household practices involving electricity and on the privacy issues around the availability of energy consumption data towards providers, neighbors and family members. These examples from water, energy and food show that the demand for green products and services is key for the further greening of production. Consumers and their social practices can no longer be ignored.